That back there is how I get warm water into my tanks during refills. No buckets, no heaters. It's straight tap right from a garden hose. But I understand that everyone's setup is going to be different. So I'm first going to show you how I do it, and then I'll show you some other methods. But first, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Kev, and here you're going to find all the aquarium help you need, straight to the point, without the fluff. If you didn't already know, when you're doing your water changes, you want to match the tank's water temperature as close as possible. No, you don't have to get it exactly like to the decimal point, but you also don't want to get it way off either. In my opinion, anywhere from plus or minus 5 degrees is going to be fine for most fish. Also, if you're only doing 10 or 20% water changes, you could go ahead and fill up with cold water. You're not going to drastically change the temperature of the entire tank's water volume. This Planet tank is one of the tanks that I only do about a 10 or 15% water change. So I do not have to worry about the temperature of the water going in, even though I still use warm water anyway. But that's just because I already have it set up. If you're water changing from about 30 to 40% or more, then yes, you definitely want to be using warm water to refill your tanks. I do about 50 to 80% water changes on my African cichlid tank and on my discus tank. Definitely not using cold water for those. Quick little side note on African cichlids. If you fill the tank up at the minus 5 degree level, that kind of simulates rain and might trigger some mating. That's when these guys get a little bit extra frisky, if there were females in the tank. If you went to plus 5 degree level, that kind of simulates a heat wave, and their metabolism is going to speed up because their body temps are going to rise, which is going to cause them to be a lot more aggressive than usual. Discus, on the other hand, are going to be a little bit different. These guys require a much higher temperature than most aquarium fish that we keep. This tank is always kept somewhere around 84 to 86 degrees. So for them, if you do go below that minus 5 degree threshold, they can really get stressed and they will show it. They are not going to like that at all. If anything, I would suggest, if you're not going to be right on the money with the temperature, try to go a little warmer than you normally keep the tank. The more you know. I have a slop sink in my fish cave, and it was the best addition in here. Not only to have a direct water source coming in, but also a handy dandy drain going out. But even if you don't have the exact setup like mine, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you other ways to do it. And yes, you always need to use a water conditioner anytime you're using tap water. I'm going to get through that later. And I'll have links to all the tools and accessories I use in the description below. So here's how I do it. I'm lucky enough to have this slop sink in my fish cave. So I'm going to show you my connections and what I'm using to get warm water into the tanks. First, let's completely ignore this Oral DI filter on the wall right here. I do not use this for any of my freshwater tanks. It's only used to fill and water change my saltwater reef tank only. It's the only reason for the Oral DI filter. Has nothing to do with how we do warm water. But because I am anticipating the question, this Oral DI bucket of water does not get heated. It stays at room temperature. And the reason for that is because this is only about 15 or 20% of the water I change in my saltwater reef tank. Like I said earlier, you don't really have to worry about adding warm water when you're doing such a small water change, not going to affect the overall tank. This water comes in from this blue line that's connected to that Oral DI filter. It comes in through the flow valve, which automatically stops it once it's full. Then I simply plug in my wave makers and they get the water moving, and then I go ahead and grab the salt, dump it in and mix it. That's all I have to do for my saltwater water change. No heating involved. Now, that's not to say that you don't need to worry about temperature swings in the reef tank. Yes, you definitely do. That kind of stuff is going to affect your coral's happiness levels. And trust me, these corals are drama queens. Sometimes you get coral like right there that are unhappy. That torch up there is kind of unhappy. But you know, throughout the day, they change. That's what happens. And that's kind of why you also want to do small water changes on reef tanks, because you don't want to change things too rapidly. Small water changes allow you to replenish the minerals that are needed in the tank while also removing any excess nutrients that you want. That's how it's done in the saltwater world. And because it is such a small water change, you know, once a week, then the temperature is not really going to be a huge factor when doing your water changes. But that's a whole nother video. Let's get back to it. Don't mind these two blue and yellow lines. Those are part of the Oral DI filter. My slop sink has individual hot and cold valves. And then I attached a simple Y mixer hose. That's what it's called. It's called a Y mixer adapter hose. One side to the hot, one side to the cold. And then this side just connects your regular garden hose. Any garden hose will do, onto the male end here. And that's how I mix my hot and cold together before it goes through the hose and out to the tank. That's it. I just turn the hot and cold on to whatever level I want it on, and then check the temperature with my fingers as so. Make sure the water is not too hot or too cold. Send it right to the tank. Now, I have to mention, you never want to go full hot water. That could be very risky for your fish. You want to mix in the cold water. Make sure the water is warm and comfortable to your touch before sending it into the tank. And because we're using tap water, we're always going to add a conditioner. I go with Chem Prime or Safe. Yes, you can add these directly into the tank as the water is filling. If you got over a 100-gallon tank, go with Safe. You'll use a lot less of it. If you've got under a 100-gallon tank, go with Prime. Okay, so what if you don't have a slop sink or access to hot water near your tanks? Let me show you a few more options that might work for you. Get yourself a Python hose. This is how I used to do water changes back in the day. The Python comes with adapters that allows you to connect directly to your kitchen sink's faucet. And you use the exact same method. You adjust the hot and cold until the water comes out nice and warm on the other end. The negative part of using a Python is that you're kind of limited to how fast you can refill your tank based on your kitchen sink's water pressure. That's all you're going to get out of it. The next option I have for you is the bathtub method. Another great method I used to use back in the day. I used to use a big old tote that I bought from Home Depot, filled that up in the bathtub using the bathtub's faucet, and then I dropped my water pump in the tote. This is the same pump that I use for draining my tanks. Now I'm just using it in the reverse way. I mix the hot and cold from the tub valves, fill up your tote, and your pump is going to send the warm water directly to your tank for a very fast fill. I used this method for many years before getting my slop sink in the fish cave. Option 3 is going to be the really old school way, using the good old bucket. You can fill it quickly with your garden hose from outside and then put a heater in it to warm it up, or you can just fill it up from inside the house with hot and cold water and then chug it to your tanks the old school way. I think we've all done it this way at one point or another. I know this isn't ideal by far. I'm just giving you the option. It's a safe way to do it, and it doesn't require any fancy plumbing. And if you're really into DIY, option 4 is to install a mixing valve in line with your water supply, especially in fish rooms. No matter how you do it, just remember, your fish don't like big temperature swings. So try to match the temperature of the new water as closely as possible to the temperature of the tank water, plus or minus 5 degrees. At this point, what I do when I'm done with my water changes is take note directly in my AquaBuilder app and set a reminder for my next scheduled water change. Now, besides temperature during your water changes, what are the other things that you need to worry about? That's gonna be in this video right here. But before you go, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.